Hello everyone, I'm building an open source food pantry web app for a local food pantry in my state. The food pantry is a nonprofit that serves families with a student in the local school system. In this series of videos, I'll be documenting how I built the app and turning it into a tutorial for others to use in their web development journey. We will be using tools like Remix Run, Google Cloud Platform, and Clerk for our authentication. This app is being used by a small nonprofit food pantry, so along the way, I'll be giving updates on the monthly cost of running this app. The entire setup should be less than $35 a month to run for a user base that we're currently estimating will be under 1,000 monthly active users. This is mainly a web development tutorial, but I did want to acknowledge a couple of things. First is this is many iterations into the app development process. I actually have been volunteering at this food pantry for almost a year now and working with staff to design an app that fits their needs. Anytime you're going to create an app to be used by people, take some time to get to know the actual problems they face and how they'll be using the app. Secondly, I'm on my own web development journey and I'm looking to help other people on theirs. So my approach is to break down the processes into small, manageable steps. So you may see me do things in 2 or 3 steps for the purposes of instruction that a person like Kent C. Dodds or Ryan Florence does in 1. That said, if there's a better way of doing something, let me know, or better yet, contribute to the project. I can use all the help I can get, and I'm still learning as well. Okay, so let's take a look at what we're building and why. The food pantry has a service population of families with students in the local school system. They receive funding from that school system, so the nonprofit has an obligation to try and make sure that the food that they send out goes to those families. When a family comes to the food pantry, the nonprofit staff have to collect information to verify that this family is eligible. This means that the highest need families are often filling out the same long form every 2 weeks in order to request a box of food. The app we're building solves this problem by allowing the families to apply to the food pantry each semester. And once they're approved, they're able to see events where they can request a food box with just a click or two. The family gets a confirmation code that they can give to the pantry staff and receive their food box quickly. On the staff side, we'll be helping them keep track of the number of children served so that they can report that back out to their donors. So I will be using free and low-cost tools as much as I can so that the app is affordable for any nonprofit to use, even really small ones. The first tool I'll be using is Remix Run, or it will also be called React Router version 7. This is because the 2 projects are merging. They're made by the same people. And it is an excellent framework built on web standards, so it's really great for learning how the web works. I've installed Remix Flat Routes. This is a package by Killaman that changes the default routing behavior to a hybrid flat routes approach. This will make more sense a little bit later on when I show my folder structure. Routing is largely a matter of style and how you like to organize your code. So you do not have to use this approach, but I absolutely love it when it comes to learning and doing maintenance on the app. And again, this will make a little bit more sense for you later on in this video when we go over the actual folder structure for the code. I'm using Shad CN for my components and my UI, and I'm also using Tailwind for styling. I will be using Google Cloud Platform, and they have an excellent free tier for a lot of their services. The database for this project will be Cloud Firestore, and I'll be running the app hosted on Google Cloud Run as a serverless deployment. The reason for this is when no one is using the app, it allows it to scale down to 0 so that the nonprofit is not being charged for idle time. I'm using Artifact Registry as a form of app version control, and it will enable me to kind of roll back updates to the app if I ever need to do that while it's in production. Finally, I'm using Firebase Auth for Food Pantry staff authentication. Primarily, this is because I can add each of the Food Pantry staff individually to the app in the Firebase authentication section. I'll be using an NPM package I wrote called Food Pantry DB in order to make using Firestore easier. It's open source as well, so feel free to copy the code. But it is in essence a wrapper around Firestore. And a big shout out to Alam Tozlek. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. He creates great tutorials on Remix and actually created a wonderful tutorial on NPM. And that has helped me a lot. I would not have been able to do this project without the amazing tutorials he has made. I'll be using Clerk Auth for authenticating families as they sign up for the Food Pantry. Clerk is the most expensive part of this project currently, and that's about $25 a month. And mainly I'm using them because they make the process of families signing up for the app really easy, and they handle all of the authentication and verifying emails and phone numbers and things like that. As I've said previously, this project has a strong micro app philosophy, and that's where complex functionality is broken down into simple modular pieces that enable faster development and learning. So the modules have a clear separation of concerns, and I believe it really helps people learning web development to get a better understanding of what's going on. So to begin with, the database architecture is all housed inside of my NPM package. So this package is, again, open source and free to inspect. The package gives me a clear API for interacting with the database, as well as schemas and type safety, and provides a few functions for reading and writing to that Firestore backend. And honestly, the main use for the NPM package here is that following this micro app approach, this Food Pantry app is actually consists of other smaller apps. And so the two primary apps here is one for the staff and one for families that are trying to request food. And so both of these apps can actually install the NPM package and run the database part of it on the server. And again, this micro app approach is very modular. So you will see that each of the routes in any of the apps, any of the Remix apps that are being created here will kind of mirror this modular micro app approach. For example, the home route for the Families app has a folder for components, a handle auth module, a data fetching module, a schemas module, and a mutations module, along with a README file that states what the purpose of the route is and how all of these things relate to each other. The Food Pantry is only open at certain times for families to pick up a food box. An event is any opportunity for a family or user of the app to request a food box. A request for a food box at an event is called a reservation. Each reservation has a 4-character confirmation code. And this confirmation code is that the request was received, not that the reservation was approved. So here is what that app looks like in our starting state. With the micro app architecture, almost all of the important stuff is happening inside of the routes folder. And I'm using, again, that Remix flat routes with this hybrid folder structure for my organization. So first, we have the UI folder, and this underscore means that it will not show up in the URL. The plus denotes that there are other folders underneath this one that will serve as routes and segments of the URL. The layout folder is responsible for the app's shell, so the sidebar and the top nav bar. Next, we come to the home folder, which represents the first URL route of home. The home route has these two primary components called the events card and the reservations card. The data for these cards comes from the page's loader data. If we look inside the events card component, we will see that the component is accessing the data from the loader using the use loader data hook. This hook is magical because it gets that loader data, and we even get type safety by defining it here. I believe in future versions of React Router v7, we'll no longer need to actually specify what the type is. It should be able to do that automatically, but anyone can feel free to correct me in the comments if this is something I don't have to do anymore with Remix. This currently is using Remix version 2 of single fetch. I will let you know when everything is converted over to React Router v7 as that gets stabilized. But this may be something that you will not have to do in the future. So you may be wondering, okay, so where does the loader get the data from that's displayed here about the confirmation number, the confirmation code, the name, or the event details? So if we look back at the routes file, we see that the loader gets the data for this page from its own get page data function. Okay, so let's go another layer deeper. Where does the get page data function get its data? Well, since its primary responsibility is fetching data, we can go and see that this function's definition lives in the data fetching or data fetchers file for this route. Looking at this function, we see that it's just calling the get events and get reservations functions defined above. And those functions are returning static data. So this is our starting point. And from here, we'll be building out all of the rest of the functionality that we need. In lesson 2, I'm going to show how I get data from Google's Firestore database, specifically for the user that's visiting this page, because the events that they're able to see and the reservations that they made will all be specific to that user. So we'll show how that functionality is derived. If you like this tutorial so far, or simply want to follow along and see how this open source food pantry software is coming along, please like and subscribe. And hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Take care.